Oh, Dark Souls. Oh, how I loved you. Dear, I want to talk about hard games. And, I guess you need to start with the Souls series with Bloodborne, Dark Souls, Neo. I've not played everything out there. I still haven't played much of Demon Souls. I bought it back in the day. It was originally released in, geez, it might have been early 2007 or mid of 2007. There was no games on PS3. And we heard there was like rumors of this game, this Dark Souls games, and you could actually play it in English way before it came out. If you get the, I think it was the Korean version or the Asian version, what they called it. It wasn't the Japanese version. And so I got it because there was nothing for PlayStation 3. We were starved for games, especially if you bought it near launch. I used to call it just the Virtual Fighter Station, and it became the Disgaea Station. That was all they had going for it. And so I got it. I didn't really understand it at the time. I played a little bit. I liked how, you know, it was an RPG or whatever, but you had a lot of control, and you know your guys would block and do all kinds of stuff. I'm like, I could see real potential in this game, but I ended up dropping it because it was stuck in 720p. It had a lot of input lag because I was playing on a 1080p monitor, and I was so disgusted in PlayStation at the time, and so I dropped it. And I didn't really play another Souls game until Bloodborne, and my friend had bought Bloodborne. He was tearing his ass up, and so I'm like, you know what? I'll give this game a run. You had your freaking buttons and stuff. Your attacks are bound to the triggers, which I thought was really weird for like a, you know, an action game, and it would take a long time to get used to. You'd run up against a monster, you press the square, ready to attack, and your guy would drink a potion. You're like, what the hell, man? And I'm like, what is all the hype of this game besides the graphics? And as you played and played and played, dude, I got it. I got the feeling. I learned to understand what it was. I never played it online. I didn't want to get griefed, or I didn't want to get caught up in the multiplayer aspect of it. I just wanted to play it, you know, solo. And, you know, a lot of people see that as a big accomplishment. I don't even think these games would be... None of the Soul games would be even probably in the top 25 hardest games I beat. And people might say, well, that's some elitist bullshit. These games are impossible. No, they're not impossible. What had happened was, over your 360 and PS3 generation, and a little bit before that, you know, you were connecting your consoles online. And that was one of the first times that, like, the developers really saw the metrics of how people were going through. And most people, I want to say I heard it was like 8% of the people would play a game, would actually see the ending of whatever it was. I can't remember if it was a specific game or if that was just an overall thing. But so many people were getting these games and playing them, and they were dropping them. And so the games were like, okay, well, what do we need to do to keep these people playing, you know, playing? And they became really easy. They became really easy. They held your hand. You could run through games and never die. They would never even put, you know, a risk to you. There's several games I've just played, and I'm not a super exceptional player. I've learned from my mistakes. That's how I get good. We'll talk about that in a second. But there was games like, what was that damn... Was it Dead Rising? Dead Rising 3. I never died in Dead Rising 3. I never died in Bloodstained. I never died in the first version of that. It was games that were just so easy that you just marched through without, you know... They were fun, but there was nothing, you know, rememberable about it, because the challenge is what you remember about these games. And so the developers made games that would lay down for you. That's the way I would describe it. They would lay down, you would walk over them, smoke through them. It's like, okay, that's a good experience, and you'd walk away. And then there was always games that were actually hard, but no one associated them with being hard. They wouldn't be associated. Oh, this is rough shit. Uncharted 1 is hard as fuck, and no one really talks about that. Gears of War 1, you could pick casual or hardcore. And it was pretty much saying easy mode or, you know, butt rape mode. And if most people played hardcore. And you go through Gears 1, and it's like way harder than the other Gears because they added a normal difficulty for the other Gears. And the normal was easier than hardcore. But anyway, back to Dark Souls. What Dark Souls was, that it was not afraid to kill you. And people had got accustomed to not dying. That they didn't need to learn from their deaths. and you just would just smoke through. I say this even started back in the Super Nintendo era, where games got a lot easier. Some people, that's more respectful of your time. Is that Dark Souls doesn't respect your time? No, Dark Souls games aren't very long. They want you to learn from where you start from, and so they, from the get-go, they will try to kill you. You know, there's going to be some skeleton who's sitting right on the other side of the corner. So as you walk around the corner, you didn't check the corner. You're used to playing a game that, you know, would not try to surprise you, and the skeleton stabs your ass right from the get-go. And the next time you go around that corner, the skeleton's still going to be there. If you're anticipating and you know he's there, then what was a challenge becomes something that you can easily take care of. And so it tried to train you, and even if you died, it would put your souls right there where you died. But it's like, if you can get back to it and get your souls back, you essentially hadn't lost progress. The only progress you lost was, you know, from where you had started at the bonfire to get to your souls or whatever. And there was items and stuff. It's like, if you can get to your souls, get them, and you could just, you know, do a town portal out or whatever, you would get all your experience and stuff back. And like, there was just like this, the dynamic between the bonfire and exploring the world is impeccable, and it's amazing. And I'm so glad that so many games are using that. And you know, it's a risk-reward thing. It's like, how cautious do you want to be? It's like, as soon as you get a level up, you want to go back to your bonfire and cash in. That's the way I would normally play. I would be intimidated, and then I would go back and kill all the same monsters I've already killed again. Or you could play it risky. Dark Souls fully lets you, if you know where to go to get to the boss, you can just run straight to them. Never fight anything. You might have a conga line of 5 assholes chasing your ass. They won't get to you. You'll be able to get to the boss. It's like, if you knew what you wanted to do, you could execute it and do it. And like, the stamina bar forced you to not just button spam. You can't just go, you know, R1, R1, R1 and just, you know, go whack crazy. You can do that to a point, even in games like Ninja Gaiden. There would be certain things you would need to dodge or whatever, and then you could just go apeshit idiot. But you could never do that really in Dark Souls, or if you could, it would be a high risk. Bloodborne lets you to do it a little bit. I mean, you know, if you could just stun the monster good enough, you might could go apeshit and win. But it was usually not a valid tactic. And the atmosphere of the world, you know, learning the different techniques, you know, it feel like you were dueling the monsters is more than just, you know, mowing their ass down to get to a boss or whatever. The world would just turn in to be full of secrets. Every which way a corner should be examined. And so, while so many other games are going open world, even Legend of Zelda went open world. It's like, oh, there's lots of shit to do in Breath of the Wild, but it would be nowhere near as cool as just, you know, a dang dungeon in like Ocarina of Time that's full of secrets, which is what Dark Souls was. It's like, imagine like all the dungeons in Legend of Zelda connected together, and you could go through them and like wind up in another dungeon, and it might be at several levels before what you should be doing, but you could go there if you want. If you figure it out, you could go there. Dark Souls allowed you to do that, and so while their world is smaller, it was interconnected in a way that was just fucking amazing. And I consider these games where there's strategic combat, and you know, you need a plan of what you're going to do. It's far more like if like the original 8-bit Castlevanias were remodernized in like 3D and stuff. That's what they would be. And there's like a castle aesthetic that goes on, and you know, at least the Dark Souls things. And gosh, just think about it, playing a modern Castlevania, and you know, that's what it is to me. And it's just, it took my head a while to wrap around it, but I was like, wow, this is the best shit ever. But it's a game that kills you. It's a game that has no problems at all killing you. Some dum-dum's going to sneak out from somewhere and poke you or push you off the bottomless cliff, and it's going to take 5 minutes of your time. And to learn to appreciate it, respect it, to not get, I mean, you're going to get frustrated, but not to get, just lose your mind. It's like a humbling experience is what I would say. And to learn from each thing that happens in the game and then try to get better at it. And, you know, your guy sucks balls at first, but as he gets cool weapons and gains levels, every time you gain a level, you get one more defense point. So when the monster stabs you or whatever, it does one less damage. And by the time you're like level 80 or whatever, there's like the guys that were trouble before at the beginning of the game, you could just mud stomp them, and it feels really good. You just one hit something that used to give you a trouble, or, you know, backstab it or parry it. And dude, this is I would say Bloodborne may be my game of this generation. I'd have to sit there and think about it. It would definitely be top 5, and it's the best PlayStation exclusive by far. I wish it was on PC. I'm thinking about one day I think about it all the time, going back through it. And most games that I play, I'm perfectly fine with being one and done. I play it through it one time, forget about it, go to the next thing, enjoy the next thing. And then you're like, well, that game was like a game I beat, I put it on the shelf, I'll even give it away. I don't care about even owning it no more. But Bloodborne, man, it just stuck with me. You know, I used the big dumb axe thing, and I spun around and kill everything. I never parried shit. It allowed you not to parry shit. One of the problems I hear about Sekiro is that you're forced to play with a sword, and you're forced to parry. You're forced into to doing things a certain way. It's like, I usually played as a big poise monster. I would get my poise or balance, whatever you want to call it, in your Neos, or I'm working on Code Vein right now, and I think it's called balance there. Just beef up, be a big dum-dum. You usually use the big weapons, which I normally don't do in most games. I don't do that in Ninja Goddamn. And just, that's the way I like to play it. But I've heard people who play like you know, a magician or whatever, or a mage, or a burn mage, a pyromancer, I think they're called, will just have a completely different experience. Oh, find a way to overcome the same, you know, seemingly impossible challenges as I did, and you know, play it differently. I think it's way easier for them. So I do wish that people would not be so off-put by the deaths that this game gives you, because they're lessons. They're lessons. You know, in real life, you get the YOLO. You're only going to get one go. But even then, you know, your death is a part of life. It's the final thing you do. And in the game, it's just a refresh. And if you learn from your refresh, you do it better on the second time. Or maybe you might screw up on the, you know, second time. You might do worse, but you might see where you need to be. And some things might take, you know, 20 or 30 times. The freaking, in Dark Souls 3, I want to say it was the Dancer or Badu or some shit. There was some crazy giant dancing monster that, like, spun around and did shit. And I freaking had to fight and fight and fight and fight. It still wasn't as bad as Ninja Gaiden Razor's Edge. But, dude, it just was to the nth degree. It was expecting the absolute best out of me. And even though when I was giving it my best, it would, you know, still kill me. But I didn't give up. I slowly figured out, you know, ways to do it. Either it's like, you know, we'll attack it through the wall, or here comes the big thing. We gotta dash it, you know, run away at the right time. Make sure I got enough stamina for the fight. Make sure I'm getting my potions. Make sure I'm using potions when I'm far away that it can't get me. Sometimes you have that point, and it's like really intense, where you know you need a potion, but you know that you can't take it yet, because if you take it, they're going to hit you again, and it's just going to cancel it out. Dark Souls brings that out of you, brings the best out of you, and I think a lot of people, they don't give it that required to get good time. There's a time when you need to know, when you just get your ass stomped in over and over again, that you need to get good to because the game expects you to play it the way it's expected to play. It's not going to lay down for you. It's not going to tell you exactly what you need to do. But there's multiple ways through you know, a problem or obstacle. You might not be supposed to be able to fight that guy yet. You might want to come back later and fight him. And, you know, you could go and do something else and level up. And then it's just so good. And I would think that this genre, and I think that, you know, the Souls genre, it's a subgenre. I mean, it's still a character action game. But the genre is one of the best things that's happened between 360 generation and this generation. And I would think that, you know what, should I've gotten tired of it by now, and I never have. And I even went through and played Dark Souls the original one. On like I think it was Games with Gold or something. I also bought it for like $5 a physical copy. And, you know, I'm sitting there playing it years after it was released or whatever, and I'm still having just a blast of fun with it. You get to go through Blight Town, it freaking frame rates like 15 frames a second. You're fighting these little dudes. They're going to knock you off on one cliff. They're like high threats. And then you realize that you're getting toxic. You know, the big famous DSP quote, "Why am I toxic?" It was because some little voodoo doctor bastard was shooting your ass in the dark. And he was the real threat, and if you ran past all of those guys who was knocking you off and you actually got to the voodoo doctor, you'd kill him and he would stay dead. And so even though it was like super hard, when you killed that one little dum-dum that was shooting that like insta-kill bullet at you and you got him, you felt so good about it. You felt so good about it. And I wish more people would give this game the time. They'll put like hundreds of hours. I'll have to use my friend Drew. Drew put 150 hours in this ass Creed, which I'm sure he had a lot of fun with. But if he put that same amount of time he put the Assassin's Creed into, like, you know, just 20-something hours it would take to beat Bloodborne or Dark Souls, he would get something out. He would see it. He would see it. They don't see the vision that I see because they didn't get good. And people's like, well, this is impossible. It's not. It's not. And you have to sit there. You have to be able to execute a plan as you see a plan and come up with a plan. You have to be able to execute it. That's where really the skill in this game is. And to not freak out because the game teaches you. You panic all the time. It'll put you in a near impossible situation that if you were paying attention wasn't impossible at all. It was completely doable. I never played against the griefing players or whatever. I just, but the game was just so good, and they've all been good. And even the ones like Cold Vein, a lot of people, it has like a mixed review or whatever. Some people are liking Cold Vein, and some people hate it. I actually liked it a pretty good bit, and I can understand why people didn't like it because it doesn't have the amazing world. As far as, you know, interconnected world that Dark Souls have, you feel like you're running down linear corridors fighting dum-dums. But hey, I've even liked that, and I don't know if I'm like super a biased fangirl, like I'm a Souls fangirl. I don't think I am. I don't think I am, but I've liked all of the combat, and I've liked what it's brought to, like, the character genres that it's brought to it. Even in games like Breath of the Wild, they're like, well, it's Dark Souls, Legend of Zelda now, open world, because the monsters will kill you in one hit. They said it felt because the monsters kill you in one hit, that it, you know, that's Dark Souls. That isn't what Dark Souls it was really about. The real point with, you know, where it connected to that game, I thought, was that, you know, as you get better gear, you get tougher, and then. But I'm just rambling on now. But I love Dark Souls. I love Bloodborne. I'm hoping that there's a Bloodborne 2. If there's a Bloodborne 2, I will buy a PlayStation 5 immediately. But people should give it more of a chance, and they have to learn to accept that dying is a part of the game. It's not really as much as a punishment. It's like a learning tool. And I think if people really appreciated that and wouldn't get so frustrated or pissed off or let their ego get the best of them, or if they're saying, well, I only want to play games to chill down, I think that they'll have much more fun and appreciation of these games. And no, they don't need damn easy modes. They don't need the easy modes at all. People need to see them for what they are.